What up? Let's do this one more time as we wrap up the round robin. Matt Robinson with you for one more time outside the TCA studio, outside beautiful Bytown, Canada. Like I said, I wasn't sure we'd get to this one tonight. We'll keep it tight. But back on Monday afternoon, as I mentioned in the last one, Rob and I will be back in studio in beautiful Bytown, Canada on Monday to wrap up. Well, I was going to say to wrap up the round robin, to talk all things. The Blue Jays have made trades. I've avoided some of the other sports here as far as the Olympics go to kick things off, just because I'm not so comfortable with them that I think a diatribe is in order. But he and I can certainly kick around the things we've enjoyed, the things we have not enjoyed, perhaps, thus far through the Olympics. But as I said in the last one, we won't hold that till Tuesday morning like we so often do after a long weekend, given how fast things are happening, how quickly things are changing during the Olympics. We'll just get it out the door as soon as it's done and edited. So look for that late Monday afternoon, early Monday evening, and hope you'll enjoy that one. Hope you'll stick around. I know Rob hopes you'll stick around. You may have had your fill of me, but there'll be somebody new there. Speaking of things I have not had my fill of, it's a bit of a stretch, eh? When it's just me and we're talking about the beers and you got to find a segue of some kind. I have not had my fill of beer. I don't know when that will happen. God help us if we ever get there. I checked my Untapped app, which I do from time to time just to get a better description of the beer or the brewery if I'm not super familiar with it or whatever. And I'm reminded each time that I used to use it to check in your beers. It used to be like the Facebook of beers, and you could kind of leave a review or a ranking or whatever. It's been a very long time since I did that. But I thought this beer was going to be new to me. And when I typed it in to Untapped, it said, I've had it before. I didn't bother searching back to see how long ago that was, but long ago enough to have escaped my memory. This is called the Northbound Lager from Side Launch. And not too long ago, I had a stout, I believe, from Side Launch, which I think I stated at the time I was unfamiliar that they even did that. I remember their kind of IPA that I had very early on, and I don't know, from then on for a long time, their brewery was just sort of off my radar. Very much back on my radar now, as this is pretty nice. Just a 4.8% lager. The Northbound thing kind of spoke to me in this moment after Canada finished a stellar round robin. I mentioned on the last show we did here, and I get it if you haven't caught all of them. I've been throwing them out at kind of the end of every day here during the men's hockey round robin. But I did mention yesterday that I thought it could be a challenge for Canada and the U.S., to be fair, to meet the lofty standards we were setting for them in terms of how hard you were going to have to go to put up these big monster numbers to try and blow away the goal differential. And yet, Canada didn't make it look all that difficult. Having beat Czechia 5-0, having beat Switzerland 5-1, and then beating France 10-2. And look, I don't mean to snicker, but this is how you get yourself into trouble. We've seen it before. You get too wrapped up into let's blow these fuckers away, and instead of doing that, you start making pretty plays when you shouldn't, bad passes when you shouldn't, like just things you wouldn't normally do because you're trying to focus on really running up the score instead of just focusing on winning the game. And I think I mentioned in that same show that I thought this Canadian team was uniquely qualified to avoid that. And that was based on nothing more than 2-game sample size, which is certainly big enough, right? We should all make very strong final assessments based on a 2-game sample size. And I thought that they kept rolling against Czechia and against Switzerland in a way that suggested that even if they were up big against France, they would keep rolling. And the example I've always used and that I used on that show was that your favorite NHL team sits back when they have a big lead going into the third. And it's frustrating. And it doesn't always cost you. But like if you're up 4-1 and it's just a random Tuesday night and your team kind of comes out and they sit back and I don't know, maybe with 8 minutes left, the opponent makes it 4-2, and then with 2 minutes left, they make it 4-3. And you're like, why the fuck are you doing nothing? And you look at the end, and the third period shots are like 12-3 for the opponent in the third period, and it's just because of that big lead. This Canadian team has avoided that trap thus far. And they did that again against France. And I didn't like the conversation that was being had on what is otherwise a very good panel on the CBC between Friedman and Bieksa, mostly about whether it's time to be polite or what. It's not about being polite. It's just about playing your game all the way to the end. And if that means you run up the score, you run up the score. And as long as this is the format of the tournament, then it's not impolite. It's impolite to design a tournament this way. Beyond that, who gives a shit? The Canadians understood it. The French understood it. They had multiple quotes from different French players saying, this is just going to be fun. We know what to expect. Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, who played in the NHL forever, was sort of laughing, saying, I guess I'm out of the league just in time if Macklin Celebrini at 19 is already capable of this. Like, everyone knew what this was, but it had nothing to do with sportsmanship or whatever else. Canada stopped celebrating and stopped throwing their arms up and whatever else when it got to a certain point, like you're supposed to do. But the tournament was designed in such a way that, you're going to have to score a lot of goals, and they did. The Americans were left having to beat Germany, a much tougher opponent, by 10 goals to beat Canada for top spot heading into the quarterfinals, and they didn't do it. They were never going to. Germany's a better team than that. I guess we can talk, before we get into the Canada game, about the just finished USA-Germany game. Look, I think the Germans are better than they showed in that game. They have had a rough round robin. I don't know how much that matters. The Swedes had a rough round robin. The Germans are going to have to play this qualification game first. But they should win that. And they're going to end up in a quarterfinal with Slovakia. And that means one of Slovakia or Germany is going to a semifinal. There will be a reseeding after the quarterfinals. So whoever the top team left is will face whoever the bottom team left is. So if Canada gets through their quarterfinal, which appears to be the winner of the quarterfinal, there will be Czechia the qualification round there will be Czechia versus Denmark. So I believe, most of us would assume Czechia will beat Denmark in that qualification round, and that will line up Canada for another go at Czechia. That's kind of annoying, just because we've already seen them. And I know that's just the way tournaments work, but as long as we're out here doing this, I'd like Canada to see some different opponents and instead of replaying the same team over again. But Canada, if they win in their quarterfinal against the winner of Czechia versus Denmark, they would get a semifinal against the winner of Germany-Slovakia. And so, look, that's going to be a tough matchup for either one of those countries to draw Canada in the semi. But the path is here for Slovakia or Germany to end up in a semifinal. Like, one of them, in all likelihood, is going to be there. So for both of those countries, that's a great outcome. That's a great tournament if they can get themselves into a semifinal and play for a medal. As for the rest of that USA-Germany game, look, the U.S. was clearly better. I don't know how much I care, but the Tkachuks sure seemed focused on Draisaitl, and I guess you can do that. Like, they don't have enough stars, the Germans, so you can sort of divvy things up, like, how about the rest of you boys go take care of winning this game, and we will make sure one of their very few stars is completely taken out of the game. And he was. Draisaitl wasn't particularly good in this game. There was a play early, midway through the first period, where both he and Stützle kind of were responsible for turning it over and creating an opportunity against. That wasn't any good. Stützle did score later in the game. He had already had one bad turnover before the one on the power play that I'm talking about here, but he did sort of round into form and look a little better. And look, they were overwhelmed. They were always going to be. It was a bit of a moonshot to hope that the Germans were going to beat the Americans, but, I think we were all sort of I think we were all sort of rooting for that, create a little bit more chaos. But, Connor Hellebuck, for what he was asked to do against Germany, I guess was fine. Zach Werenski continues to look pretty good. I think I said this yesterday. I don't really want to wade into the Austin Matthews thing at all. I don't think his performance has really warranted comment, good or bad. And this is part of the Twitter algorithm thing. This is part of the pylon thing. I don't think Matthews has been great. I don't think he's been electric, but I think he's been fine. Like, what were you going to... Because the criticism... And here I go. I'm wading right into it. The criticism, if he had lit up the round robin and he'd pumped in 5 goals in 3 games in the round robin, yeah, well, it's Denmark and Germany, and so the guy can't win. And so he doesn't quite put up those kind of numbers, but he's still over a point a game here by a significant margin. And it's like, well, he's not doing it against the right opponent, or until he does a 3-point game and a gold medal game, it doesn't, like, it just doesn't matter. And I get it. Like, I have time for the discussion about whether or not Austin Matthews was the right choice to be captain, but they weren't going to change that after the 4 Nations. It's just a can of worms that they didn't need. And barring an obvious choice in a different direction, and I don't know what that is. I see a lot of people calling out for Brady Tkachuk. I could see that. He has been the best American, along with Eichel, and along with, I really like the tournament that Quinn Hughes has had so far. Like, there's been a couple guys. I guess all of that would have been done before we had seen that. But you needed, like, a slam dunk guy that absolutely is better than Austin Matthews to be captain, to create that storyline in your own dressing room, in your own media group. Like, we can argue about whether or not they should have named him captain before 4 Nations. But once they did that, you're almost locked in to having to do it at the Olympics. And I guess your easy way out, if you think he was the true leader, would be to go to Quinn Hughes, because he was not at 4 Nations. And so you can kind of suggest, hey, we would have liked to have gone that direction, but Quinn was not available for 4 Nations. Now that he is, we want to make him captain at the Olympics. That was your way out. You could have done that. And I don't think anybody would have really raised an eyebrow that Quinn Hughes is a suitable option to be captain. But it's just not a reasonable, I guess it's reasonable. It's just not an important enough debate for me to want to fall into it. Oh, he's the worst captain Team USA's ever. Fine. I don't know. And it forces Leaf fans to do the opposite thing. And now we're all debating about Team USA. And he's been fine. He's not been great. He's not been terrible. He's just having a round robin that you do when you have a pool that features Denmark and Germany and Latvia. I don't know. If you want to get wound up about it, that's your business. But like I said, I think by far the Americans have established themselves as the best blue line in the tournament. They looked better against Germany than they did against Denmark. Certainly better than they did against Latvia. And we can have this discussion. I'll ask Rob about it on Monday afternoon, whether you'd rather have what the Americans had, where you had to fight a little bit and it wasn't pretty and there was a little bit of adversity, and whether you like that storyline, because that's all these are, is storylines, or whether you're feeling better as Canada, who did have better opponents. Let's be real. Like, they had to play Czechia and Switzerland, who are both better than anything that the Americans have faced thus far, but pounded on everybody and then put up a 10 spot on France and has faced no adversity. Like, at some point, their back will be pushed to the wall. Are they capable of overcoming that? Like, these are all stories that as sports fans, we read, we indulge in. They're debates that we have. I guess they're both fair. I think there's no real way to know which is true until you run into it, and then you backfill the story you want to tell, right? You decide later. So the Americans get through their round robin undefeated. Hellebuck, like I said, did everything he could do in the 2 starts he got to show, yeah, I'm here, I'm the guy. But again, against weaker opponents, we're not going to know until he has to face, well, it looks like Sweden in the quarterfinals. Short of Sweden really just throwing up all over themselves in that qualification round, we will get one of those I think for a lot of people, the final four we predicted would be Canada, USA, Sweden, and Czechia in some order. That's not going to happen. Canada is going to run into Czechia most likely in their quarterfinal. The Swedes are going to run into the Americans in their quarterfinal. And from there, who the hell knows? But that Sweden-USA game is money. I think the Americans are the better team. Certainly the two best blue lines in the tournament. Would you agree with me on that? Because that's sort of where I fall. I think the Swedes can keep up in goal. They haven't actually shown it yet. They have three very good goalies, but two of the three have let in kind of stinky ones at bad moments. So we'll see what that looks like. Canada is through, undefeated, first place. We'll look at, I'm assuming it'll be Czechia, right? Like it's going to be Czechs versus Danes in that qualification round, and I assume Czechia takes them down, and it'll be a rematch with Canada. The game against France was fun. And you can decide for yourself what the sportsmanship thing and the Tom Wilson fight thing, our friend Don in Farhaven, I thought had a great tweet. Because, look, let's be real. Wilson got a little bit embarrassed there. He was out looking to make a point after what I think his name is Pierre Crenal had done to Nathan MacKinnon. And then that guy was up for a fight. Crenal was like, all right, like I'll go. And all of a sudden you're in this thing. I'm not sure Tom Wilson really thought this was going to happen, but all of a sudden everybody's gloves are off and you're sort of throwing punches. And then I get why Crenal may not want Tom Wilson. So he sort of pulls him down for a wrestling match. And then you're up again, kind of going at it. It sounds like there will be, I did wonder, because there was sort of the second go, if there would be supplemental discipline. Friedman reports there isn't. Both guys are good to go in their next games, so that's good. But our friend Don at Farhaven said, I laughed that Tom Wilson will grab that guy in the parking lot and deal with him because he kind of got embarrassed a little bit. I think part of the reason, and we don't follow this stuff, at least I don't, in the French professional league, I guess this guy Crenal got a 7-game suspension for punching a goalie. And a lot of people in France who follow hockey didn't want him on the team. Like he was sort of a bad look. You don't deserve that. Not dissimilar to the conversations some people had about Tom Wilson, that you don't deserve to represent this country. We don't like that. Sure enough, he's the one who gets into it with Tom Wilson, and they both get thrown out of the game, but will continue in the tournament. That was fun. It was less fun to see Nathan MacKinnon take a couple of hard shots there. He was sort of struggling at the end of the game. It sounds like he's good to go. Crosby already or now sets a new all-time point record for Team Canada in the NHL era, so that's cool. Now McDavid in just 3 games isn't far behind him. The Celebrini thing was so fun just to watch that kid play. And everything that's gone into it, the penalty shot where John Cooper was sort of joking after the game saying, everybody's turning around. What are you going to do, coach? You going to let him have it? Because I guess anyone on the ice could have taken the penalty shot. And the kid's already standing out there. Now, he said in an interview afterwards, like, I didn't know anyone could take it. I just assumed as the one who was fouled, it was me. But there's some swagger to that kid. And he's already standing at center ice going, I'm going. Right? And so John Cooper would have, and he alluded to this in his post-game interview, so I would have been booed out of the building if I had pulled the kid back and given the puck to Connor or whatever you want to do there. We did see, as I'd hoped, Nate MacKinnon returned to center, and he still took some reps with McDavid. And I think maybe that's how you do this, but they just haven't quite figured it out. There was a goal where MacKinnon set up Brandon Hagel, which is nice to see. I don't think Nick Suzuki fits quite right there. And I've already addressed that, so I'm not going to go down that road too far. But I do like the idea that MacKinnon was back at center. I just wish they'd try something else on the other side to see if they can make that line a little more dangerous. And as long as you've got Sam Reinhart down on the 4th line, not getting enough minutes. And I was surprised how many people I saw online saying that he's a dud in a Team Canada jersey and his international history is shit or what. The sample size is just way too small for any of that. And as long as you're playing him on the fourth line, what do you expect you're going to get, right? So I don't agree with that. I still, if you haven't done it in the round robin, they're not going to do it. We saw that look in one of the practices before the tournament started. McKinnon between Hagel and Reinhart. They obviously didn't like it because at no point in the tournament have we seen it. They've gone to Suzuki between Wilson and Hagel and moved McKinnon up. They've pushed McKinnon back down in between, like I said, Suzuki and Hagel. If they haven't done it yet through the round robin, I guess you're just not going to see it. So one of those things that Matt was wishing for that he's not going to get. And it's hardly something to complain about at this point. The other thing, though, that I would bring up is Binnington, 2 goals on 8 shots to start the game. He's not a problem, but he's not going to be a problem until he's a problem. And I know that sounds silly, but you're playing France. So he gave up 2 goals, and you're like, well, whatever, we scored 10. Okay, you probably won't score 10 when it suddenly matters, when you're up against somebody a lot better in a semifinal or in a medal game. And when he lets in that backbreaker, you will care a lot more than you did against France. So it's just something to keep an eye on, because I did say, trying to be fair, after the 5-0 win over Czechia, he did everything you could have possibly asked him to do. It wasn't going to be possible for him to change my mind in that game, but there's nothing you can... Czechia was the best team in your pool, and he shut them out. Cool. There's nothing I can say to criticize that. He's given up 2 to France on 8 shots. I feel the exact same way about that guy that I did coming into the tournament. Nothing changed through the round robin. And I understand I did get some tweets and a couple messages after the game against Switzerland where Logan Thompson gave one up. I don't know if the Swiss are a better team than the Czechs. I don't think they're a lot worse. They have some NHL firepower and some guys up and down the lineup. I think 10 NHL guys in the lineup, and certainly no Pasternak or no Thomas Hertl. But they've got pieces. They got Timo Meier, right? And Niederreiter and Nico Hischier, Roman Josi. They got guys. And so, yeah, Logan Thompson gave one up, and I'm getting messages that are like, that should end the debate for you. Binnington got a shutout, and Logan Thompson didn't. I'm like, well, I'm sorry, but it didn't end the debate for me. So we'll see. That's probably enough for today. I thought the game was fun. And look, it was always going to be fun when you beat up on France. But I thought most of the French guys knew what was coming. Most of them were, understood what they were up against. And they were out to do their best, but sort of knew what was about to happen. And so, yeah, that was, see Sid score again. McDavid put up another few points. Like I said, Celebrini, I don't know. Kid could have played at World Juniors this year. What was that, 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago? He was still eligible to play for Canada at the World Juniors. And here he is killing it on the top line at the Olympics. We'll see as we get into some stiffer competition, but Czechia and Switzerland are no joke. Those are real countries, and he looked, obviously, right at home. Wild story to watch. He has become, for a lot of people, the most fun element of this. On the injury thing, we hear Brad Marchand is going to play in the quarterfinal. I guess he arrived in Italy dealing with something. I think we knew that. So they decided to give him the extra day off, but he will be back in the lineup for the quarterfinals. We still haven't heard a real update on Josh Morrissey other than they don't think he's done for the tournament. I would feel a lot better with him back in there on that second pair. Not certain that that's going to happen in the quarterfinals. They do have 2 days to practice here, so we'll get a better handle on him. And we'll go from there. But I'm excited. Like I said, another fun day. And even rooting against the Americans, right? It's kind of a national hobby. We like to do that up here. So, I was hoping the Germans would do better, but they put up a fight and, stopped the Americans from running up the score and getting even close to our differential, which suddenly became the story for the last couple of days. We're into the hot and heavy stuff now. So we'll see how it plays out. Like I said, Rob and I back in studio on Monday afternoon. We will get that out the door and on your podcast feed by late Monday afternoon or early Monday evening. Hope you'll join us for that one, and then we'll see what happens throughout the rest of the Olympic Games once I'm back in the studio, how we want to play things from there. But we'll see as things roll on. Thanks so much for checking this one out. My name is Matt Robinson. Hope you're having a fantastic long weekend. We'll see you Monday evening.